The member for McKellar.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. Will the Treasurer outline for the House what the Morrison government is doing to assist older Australians and those planning for their retirement during this pandemic? Is the Treasurer aware of any alternative policies?
The Treasurer.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. And I thank the member for McKellar for his question and acknowledge his extensive background in small business and the health sector and also financial services sector before coming to this place. Now, Mr Speaker, Australians are doing it tough in this one-in-a-century pandemic, and particularly older Australians, those who are either in retirement or planning for retirement. And that's why the Morrison government has acted, Mr Speaker, with $750 cash payments, one that started on the 31st of March and the other to come in July, that have been supporting more than 2 million pensioners. We've also reduced the drawdown rates by 50%, Mr Speaker, to give retirees more control over their savings. And we've also reduced the deeming rates by 0.75%, so at the lower level they're at 0.25%, Mr Speaker. So with these measures, the Council of the Ageing has welcomed these measures and said that the government is helping to get senior Australians through this crisis. Now, Mr Speaker, I'm asked about any alternative policies, Mr Speaker. Well, I know that the member for Rankin was the architect of $387 billion of higher taxes, Mr Speaker. Do you remember those higher taxes? The one the member for McMahon said if you don't like them, don't vote for them, Mr Speaker. $387 billion of higher taxes that the member for Rankin, who keeps his head down, said he was pleased and proud of. He was so pleased. Do you remember that photo? Remember that photo on the eve of the election? Under the heading, "We're ready," under the heading, "We're ready" there. Now, Mr Speaker, you could ask yourself, how did senior Australians fare out of those taxes, Mr Speaker? How did senior Australians fare with those taxes? Well, Mr Speaker, there were $34 billion of extra taxes on super, Mr Speaker. There was $31 billion of extra taxes on housing, and there was a $57 billion retirees tax, Mr Speaker, that would hit some 1 million Australians, including around 7,000 in Eden Monero, Mr Speaker, and would leave one of those Australians on average $2,200 a year worse off. It would heavily hit women and would heavily hit lower income earners, Mr Speaker, and that the Alliance for a Fairer Retirement System said Labor's policy was a cruel blow, the end result which would be to drive many retirees onto welfare. Now, Mr Speaker, I read today that the member for Rankin is blaming the media for his irrelevance, Mr Speaker. Well, how delusional and desperate can you get? He hasn't asked me a question all last week, and he hasn't asked me a question this week, Mr Speaker. The member for Rankin has his eyes on only one job that he can't even do his.